I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your chilling host, and you're about to hear it all in tonight's episode of Terror in the Dark. Tonight's journey takes us into a cursed American forest where legends of shapeshifters come alive, and a hunter and his dog uncover a truth far bloodier than myth. Stay close. If you're already part of our community, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this. Or subscribe to see what rises from the depths of darkness and unfolds before you. Now, let's begin. We left Flagstaff as if we were leaving a trench, with the smell of blood still clinging to our bones, with the red eyes of that monster burning in our memories. With Harold dead, and the certainty that what we faced there wasn't an isolated nightmare. It was the beginning. I was the one who chose Albuquerque. A big enough city to hide, a place where disappearances don't draw much attention, where you can vanish into the edges of normality. I arranged a new name on paper, rented a one-story house near Nob Hill, and kept the windows shut for the first few weeks. Rex seemed to understand everything. Ever since we entered New Mexico, he hadn't slept deeply. He spent the nights pacing through the house, sniffing at the doors, pausing in front of cracks as if he expected a whisper to come from the other side of the wall. It was the same behavior he showed days before the first death in Flagstaff. I tried to be normal. Got a job as a mechanic at a shop on Louisiana Avenue. Met a few faces: Miguel, the shop owner; Casey, a girl who worked the front desk and offered me coffee every morning without expecting conversation back. Regular folks. And even then, every time I saw someone crossing the sidewalk staring too long at my yard, my body reacted like it was a bad omen. In the third week, a case appeared in the local paper. 2 dogs found torn open in a backyard on the outskirts. Police said it could have been a coyote. But I read the description and knew immediately. Cuts too deep, spine separated, exposed jawbone. That was ritual. That was a message. The following night, Rex woke up at exactly 3 a.m. I'm standing at the living room door, body tense, eyes fixed on the side window. I stood up in silence, loaded gun in hand, and went over. There was a mark on the glass, a long scratch stained with something that looked like wet dirt or dried blood. The security camera recorded only a shadow, tall, too fast. The same we saw in the northern woods, only now, inside the city. I received the first threat 2 days later, an envelope in the mailbox. Inside, a piece of tanned leather with a burned symbol, 3 curved slashes shaped like a claw. It was the same symbol from the medallion we took off the werewolf's corpse in Flagstaff. There was no doubt left. That wasn't the only one. And they knew who killed it. I didn't tell anyone. Not that anyone would believe me. But I started reinforcing the house's entries, installing sensors, creating a strict routine of isolation. I became the kind of neighbor everyone avoids. Rex, on the other hand, seemed more ready by the day. He slept at the front door, standing guard like he was waiting for the war to begin. It happened at the end of the 4th week, the first death. The victim's name was Thomas. He was a friend of Miguel, the shop owner, worked with brakes and alignment. Had 2 kids, a wife, and a loud laugh that filled the garage whenever he was around. He didn't show up for his shift on a Friday, and by the afternoon, Miguel's phone started ringing non-stop. Saturday morning, Casey came into the shop pale, her phone shaking in her hand. "They found Thomas," she said, "dead, in his backyard." It wasn't a robbery. Nothing was stolen, but the body was unrecognizable. The torso was opened, organs torn out and laid beside the body like they had been carefully removed. The lower jaw was missing. The police cordoned off the house and released a statement to the press talking about an animal attack. Animal. The word repeated in my head like mockery. Rex was restless that day. He circled the house as if something was deeply bothering him. When night fell, He stood at the back door, nose raised, body as rigid as a statue. He wasn't growling, he wasn't barking, he was just sensing, and I understood. They were close. I opened the trunk beneath the floor in the living room and retrieved what remained of the weapons from Flagstaff. The bullets with white tips, the knife with the carved handle, the spear Harold had entrusted to me. They were still there, like ghosts waiting for a second mission. The landline rang, that old phone I almost never used. I answered without thinking, and the voice on the other end was male, low, almost gasping. "He was of our blood. You burned the brother. We smell him on your dog. We'll skin him first." The line went dead. There was no way to trace it. From that moment on, I began sleeping with Rex by my side and the gun within arm's reach. Every noise, every rustle outside was a possible approach. And worse, now they knew I was with Rex. He wasn't just a threat, he was a target. On Sunday night, I saw it. I was closing the living room window when I noticed a figure in the bushes across the street, tall, hunched, watching the house like it was waiting for permission. The eyes didn't reflect light. They emitted it, red, fixed, like headlights on a dark road. Rex lunged at the door with a thud, baring his teeth, but he didn't bark. Whatever was outside didn't move. It just vanished into the trees across the street, left no footprints, no trail, just the impression that it had claimed territory. Later, I found marks on the back wall, 4 deep scratches on the wood, above my height, and a tuft of dark fur caught in the iron grate. The same smell, that mix of wet dog, soaked earth, and something more rotten, something dead inside. The next morning, Miguel didn't show up for work. Casey called, said he'd spent the whole night calling the police, saying someone was lurking around his house. The yard was torn up. Miguel's dog, a full-grown Rottweiler, was found disemboweled next to the garage. I didn't need to see the scene. I knew exactly what it meant. They were starting. Rex stood motionless on the porch, staring at the empty street, the morning wind blowing over the dried blood still stained on the concrete. And I, with the gun in my lap and a dry mouth, understood one thing clearly. They didn't come to kill me. Not yet. They wanted to watch me break first. By Monday morning, I had already made my decision. If we stayed in Albuquerque, we'd be cornered. It was only a matter of time until Rex fell like the neighborhood dogs, until I woke up with my jaw torn off like Thomas. I couldn't allow grief to hit me a second time. Not after Harold. But before I could make any escape plan, someone knocked on the door. 3 dry knocks. Calculated. Enough to make Rex rise with his back hair standing on end, his whole body locked like a spring ready to launch. I went to the door with the gun in hand, aiming straight at eye level. When I opened it, I saw a man with graying hair, unshaven beard, and sunken eyes. He wore a worn military jacket and carried a backpack on his back. For a moment, time froze. Then he spoke. "Are you Dylan Miller?" The question was like a blade. I almost forgot what my name was. I nodded without lowering the gun. "My name is Nathan Cole. I served with Harold 23 years ago. He wrote me before he died. Said if something went wrong, I should find you." Rex growled low but didn't advance. He watched the stranger with judgmental eyes, as if he were smelling something beyond the sweat and grime of that backpack. "How did you find me?" I asked, keeping the aim steady. Nathan raised a notebook. "Harold left instructions, and you weren't exactly discreet with the body they burned in Flagstaff. The report spread. Anyone who knows where to look finds." I opened the door reluctantly. He entered slowly, without threats. Rex didn't move away for even a second. Nathan placed the backpack on the kitchen table and pulled out a bundle of papers, printed photos, and a small wooden box with inscriptions I'd seen before. The same language engraved on the medallion we found among the ashes of the dead werewolf. "Do you know what killed Harold?" He looked at me seriously. "I do, and I know it wasn't the last." "Then you know why I'm here." I did, but I still didn't want to admit it out loud. He pulled a photo from the pile. The image showed a tall, naked man lying on the concrete of a warehouse. His body was covered in marks, scars, burns, but his eyes were open, even in death, and they glowed, faintly, as if something inside was still trying to get out. "This was in Las Cruces last month, same pattern, jaw torn off, chest opened. But this time, he survived for hours before dying. He spoke, said names, said his clan was hunting someone." Nathan tossed the photo on the table. "The name he said was yours." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. "They know. They know who you are, and they know what Rex is." I looked up. He continued. "They track by scent, but also by memory. The oldest, they have a way of marking their prey. You can change your name, change cities, and they'll still find you." Nathan opened the wooden box. Inside were 3 projectiles. Whitish tips, not silver, but some kind of irregular porous bone. The bone comes from one of the ancients, an ancestral wolf. These projectiles are forged with black hemlock oil and sulfur powder. They don't kill on their own, but they hurt, and slow regeneration. With that, you gain time. Rex slowly approached and sniffed the projectiles. Then, he sat. Silent acceptance. "Do you have more of those?" I asked. "Just a few. But I'm trying to forge more. I need time, ingredients, and a safe place. This isn't it." "Then why'd you come here?" Nathan sighed deeply. "Because when they realize they couldn't break you, they'll stop playing. And they'll start killing everyone around you. This here," he pointed outside, "will become their territory." Nathan wanted to leave that same night. "While you're breathing here, someone else is getting closer. These bastards hunt in packs. One watches, another executes. A third covers the tracks." He suggested we go to a rural property south of the city, near Los Lunas, where a friend of his, a retired ex-ranger named Mark Hastings, had reported similar past cases. He doesn't ask questions, he shoots first. But it was still too soon, and I needed to see with my own eyes that death was truly lurking. Casey was the only person who treated me like a human being since I arrived. A soft-voiced woman, sad smile, who still believed the world could be fixed with good intentions. She hadn't answered her phone all day. I went to her house before sunset. The street was deserted, the front door slightly ajar. Rex started growling 2 blocks away. The smell came first. That unmistakable odor of torn flesh, coagulated blood, and predator urine, a smell that sticks to your soul and burns from within. I entered with my weapon drawn. Nathan stayed outside, covering the rear. The living room was intact, so was the kitchen. But when I opened the hallway door, the floor beneath my feet disappeared. Her body was in the bathroom, stuffed inside the bathtub, without water, without dignity. Her head was twisted backward, mouth open, as if the scream had been torn out, her stomach open. Intestines dragged into the hallway, as if something had come out from inside her. A spiral trail of blood drew symbols on the tile. Rex entered slowly, sat beside the door, not approaching, didn't growl, didn't sniff. Just stayed there, firm. I knew what that meant. They had seen us talking. She became a target by proximity. There was something on her bedroom wall. A warning scratched with the tip of some claw, one by one. Nathan arrived seconds later, saw the body, the symbols, and looked at me as if nothing needed to be said. He recognized that kind of scene. It was ritual. We left the house in silence. There was no time for police, explanations, or justice. Justice was now something else. Savage, direct, of knife and gunpowder. That night, we left for Hastings' property. It was an isolated house, surrounded by twisted trees and barbed wire fences. Hastings was already waiting for us with a shotgun in his lap, red eyes from sleepless nights. "You brought the dog?" he asked, even before greeting us. "We did," I replied. "And they came after him." Hastings let us in. The house interior was austere. One living room, 2 beds, a basement locked with 4 padlocks. In the center of the living room, a map was spread out on a wooden table, claw marks scratched in red at various points. He had already been studying the patterns. "It's not just you, son. People have been vanishing around here for over a year, but the pattern's gotten more aggressive in the last month. And now, with this dog here, well, let's say they know their time is running short." I spent hours staring at the map, listening to Hastings' descriptions. People disappearing on moonless nights, cattle found with guts torn out and arranged in circles, trails where tracks disappeared into nowhere. But now it was personal. They were leaving a blood trail behind me. One by one. Nathan marked the location of an old abandoned train station to the north, between Albuquerque and Bernalillo. "The last hot signal came from here," he said. "And if my calculations are right, this place could be the pack's meeting point." Rex approached the door and started sniffing the air. He stood there, still, like a statue of muscle and tension. Hastings looked at me. "Is that good or bad?" "It's a warning," I replied. "It means they're not going to wait for our next move." And then we heard it, not just any sound. Silence. The forest, the crickets, even the wind. Everything stopped. And outside, beyond the fence, red eyes appeared. Not 1 pair, not 2, 3 pairs. They had followed us. Hastings' house was surrounded. 3 pairs of eyes watched from the edge of the woods, fixed, glowing in the dark like live embers, and they didn't reflect light. They emitted it. This wasn't animal. It was ritual. It was challenge. Hastings dimmed the living room light. "There are more than we expected." "They know we're armed," said Nathan, checking the pistol magazine. "This isn't a hunger attack. It's revenge." Rex stood at the door, silent. The muscles under his fur were tense, ready. When the first branch cracked from the side of the house, the dog merely turned his head, calmly, as if saying, "It's time." We split up, Rex and I in the front, Nathan and Hastings in the back. The house was small, built with thick wooden walls, but that wasn't protection. It was a delay, and with each passing second, the feeling grew stronger. They were testing the structure, sensing where it was weakest. The first attack didn't come through the door. It came through the roof. There was a dull thud, as if something weighing hundreds of pounds had landed on the shingles. Then the sharp sound of claws scraping metal. Hastings shouted, "Shit, they're on the roof!" The kitchen light bulb exploded. Nathan fired at the ceiling. 2 quick shots. A low growl responded, but the monster didn't fall. The wood above the main room gave way with a crash. A body burst through the roof and hit the floor between the table and the wall. It was massive. Black fur, paws with curved claws, and eyes so red they lit up the floor beneath them. For a second, no one moved. Then Rex lunged. The impact between them was brutal, teeth against teeth, claws against fangs. I fired, but the creature moved too fast. The bullet struck its side. A high-pitched hiss came from the beast's mouth, but it didn't back off. It just attacked again, now aiming at Rex with more fury. Hastings entered the room with an old shotgun and fired at point-blank range. The shot blew off part of the creature's shoulder, exposed bone. And yet, It rose on its hind legs and struck Hastings with a blow that sent him flying against the wall. The impact sound was dry. His body slid down to the floor, limp, lifeless. "Shit!" I yelled, running to him. He was alive, but blood was pouring from his ears. Nathan grabbed one of the short spears and drove it into the creature's leg. A black liquid splattered onto the floor. The monster screamed, finally retreating, and leapt back out through the hole in the roof. Silence. Rex remained standing, bloody, panting but upright. His left eye was partially shut, cut. "He'll be back with the others," Nathan said. "This was just a distraction." "And Hastings?" I asked. Nathan approached, checked his vitals. "Died from the fall. The first victim of the night. The first of us. Hastings was dead." The old hunter, who had survived mountain patrols and years of armed silence, didn't last 2 minutes against that thing. His skull had cracked on impact with the wall. Blood still dripped from his mouth when we pulled his body behind the couch. He hadn't even had time to scream one last time. Rex stayed standing. Blood dripped from the cut above his eye, but his teeth were bared with fury. The battle wasn't over, just changed form. Nathan and I reloaded what we could. The special projectiles were running low. We had 3 bone-tipped bullets and 2 spears left. That was all we had against what seemed to be an entire clan of revenge-driven killers. The hole in the roof let the night in like a living threat. Every breeze carried a stench that made my stomach churn. Burnt fur, aged blood, and fermented flesh. They were close. Waiting. Nathan pointed to the side windows. "We have to leave before they all come in at once. This house is going to become a coffin." I thought fast. There was an old shed out back. Hastings had mentioned keeping a working pickup there, if we could reach it. We run to the shed, start the truck, and take the back road. They won't expect a retreat. They're certain we'll stay and resist. Nathan nodded. "You take Rex. I'll cover the rear." I threw open the back door, and we ran straight into the darkness. The wet grass muffled our steps, but their sound was louder than the silence around us. Rex led the way. His movements were surgically precise. Every step seemed to know where not to make noise. The shed was 30 meters away, still intact. We reached it, forced the wooden door, which gave way easily. Inside, the pickup truck was under a tarp, but the smell of gasoline was still strong. The key was in the ignition, just like Hastings had promised. Nathan checked the sides while I pulled off the tarp. Then he shouted, "Dylan, to your left!" One of the creatures appeared from the side of the shed. It wasn't as big as the one on the roof, but still twice the size of any man. Its fur was grayish, scarred. The snout was deformed, and the teeth, there were too many for a single mouth. Nathan fired. The bullet hit the neck. The creature staggered but lunged forward. I pulled the spear and drove it into the beast's side. It turned to strike me, but Rex was already on it. He leapt with a side bite and tore off part of its ear. The monster howled, stepped back. Nathan fired again, straight into the chest. The impact knocked the creature backward, crawling into the woods. It vanished without a trace. We didn't waste time. I pushed the truck out. The engine coughed twice before starting. Nathan jumped into the passenger seat. Rex climbed in behind, and I hit the gas, skidding across the dirt. The howls came shortly after, multiple, distant, but not too far. As we fled down the dirt road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. 3 figures were running between the trees, following our trail. They wouldn't give up. And now, they knew the scent of our escape. The dirt road stretched before us like a ribbon of dust, narrow and winding. Hastings' truck groaned forward, every pothole along the way sounding like a warning. "They're still behind you." Rex was in the back seat, head low, eyes half closed. The wound above his eye was still bleeding, but the dog didn't make a sound. He just watched the tree line through the rear window as if expecting one of them to move. "They won't stop now," Nathan said, eyes fixed on the mirror. "Now that we hurt one of them, the hunt's personal." I kept a firm grip on the wheel. The road led to the interstate, but we still had miles to go. The truck radio crackled. No signal. The headlights lit up little, just a narrow strip of nothing. New Mexico's darkness at night was different. There was no sound, no life. As if the entire desert held its breath, waiting for blood to spill again. 20 minutes later, the tires screeched as we hit asphalt. We merged onto the highway heading north. The city was just over 20 kilometers away. That's when Rex started growling. I looked back. Nothing was following us on the road. But then I saw his eyes, focused on the forest on the side, tracking something invisible, until Nathan pointed with a pale finger. "Look on the shoulder. 3 o'clock. A silhouette." The shape was huge, taller than any human, and it ran between the trees, matching the speed of the moving truck. "They're flanking, coming from the side. They're preparing." Fear turned into impulse. I floored the gas pedal. The truck shook. The tires screamed. The engine howled. But we kept going. We reached the outskirts of Albuquerque minutes later, entered through side streets in the industrial zone, where old warehouses still hold decades-old machinery. I chose an empty warehouse with a rusty gate and opened the padlock with an improvised master key. We drove in and shut it behind us. It was a weak shelter, but it was all we had. Inside, the place was cavernous, dark, damp. The high ceiling allowed long echoes. A stale smell of oil and rusted metal filled the air. Rex walked the space, sniffing everything, then sat in the center of the hall, ears on high alert. Nathan set up traps at the entrances. Tripwires, repurposed bear traps, and improvised mines made from bottles and nails. We placed everything we had in our hands. Every corner of that structure would be defended to the last breath. And then, we waited. The city outside slept, unaware. The streets were silent, except for the occasional distant truck, and we, inside that concrete coffin, knew something would come before sunrise, because there was nowhere else to run. The first knock came around 4:17 a.m. A muffled sound, coming from the side of the warehouse, as if something, or someone, was testing the resistance of the metal. Rex stood up immediately, his body tense like a pulled wire, snout pointed at the darkness in the opposite corner. Nathan looked at me. No words were exchanged. We grabbed our weapons, each taking position. The traps were ready, but nothing compares to what comes when the enemy isn't just strength, it's intelligence. The second sound was lighter, on the roof. Something walked above. Slow steps, testing. They were spreading out, sensing, preparing. Rex began to emit a growl so low I felt it in my stomach before hearing it in my ears. He knew. It wasn't one or two, it was the entire clan. The back wall gave way first. An old wooden structure cracked, and a form burst in, shattering part of the lower frame. The creature wasn't the same as before. It was bigger, more agile. Its fur was mottled gray and black, and its eyes burned in an orange hue, like embers about to explode. We fired. I hit its shoulder, Nathan hit its hip. The monster screamed something. It wasn't a sound of pain. It was anger, a warning. And then it leapt back, left behind the stench, the scratches, and the certainty that it hadn't come to kill yet, just to open the path. On the other side, we heard breaking glass. A second wolf entered, this one smaller but faster. It dodged the traps, spun between the beams like a living shadow. Rex lunged before I could issue any command. The clash between the two was violent. The floor shook. The dog bit the creature's hind leg, knocking it down momentarily. But the wolf twisted, slashing Rex with a claw that opened his flank like a blade. Blood splattered. Rex fell. I ran. I shouted for Nathan, who was reloading. I fired at the creature's neck. The bullet passed through. The wolf staggered, stumbled, and tried to flee, but Nathan appeared beside it and drove a short spear deep into its chest. The creature's howl echoed in the warehouse. It writhed on the ground, paws pounding the concrete, eyes locked on me. Then, it died. The body, seconds later, began to deform, bones retracting, fur shedding in clumps, until only a naked, thin man remained, covered in scars, with a smirk still on his face. "One of them," I murmured. Nathan approached, panting. "One less." But there was no time to breathe. A metallic noise rang from the roof. More claws, more weight. The rest were coming. I ran to Rex. He was bleeding heavily, but still conscious. He licked my hand as I approached. "Stay with me, buddy," I whispered, pressing the wound. Nathan ran over. "We're out of time. We have to go now." "You said the next step would be killing everyone around us. They already did. Now it's us." "Yes, and they only need one mistake." I went to the side window of the warehouse. Through the crack, I saw the others arriving. 3, 4, the pack. We were at the heart of their den. Dawn found the warehouse covered in blood, wood splinters, twisted metal, and the naked body of a man who, just hours before, had been a ravenous beast. We were still alive. Barely. The others didn't come in. They surrounded us, tested us, made one of us bleed, then retreated. Like predators aware of the game, Nathan was leaning against the wall, eyes red from exhaustion and dry blood on his neck. I was still pressing makeshift bandages against Rex's side, who lay still, breathing heavily. The cut was deep, but not lethal, not for him. Still, losing blood at that rate didn't leave us much time. "If we don't treat this soon, he'll lose strength," I murmured. Nathan nodded, but his eyes were fixed on the entrance. They didn't want to finish it tonight. It was just to send a message. They're wearing us down. They're waiting for us to slip. Or waiting for reinforcements. The thought was almost unbearable. There were already so many. But what if there were more, from other clans, from other parts of the country? I stood up. My arms were stained with dry blood, smaller wounds on my ribs and shoulder, but my mind was still working. There was no more chance to flee. We couldn't let anyone else die. If the city ignored the signs, that was its problem. If they wanted blood, they would get it. "You said something about forging more projectiles. Still possible?" I asked. Nathan took a deep breath. "If we get the ingredients, yes. I need sulfur, black hemlock, and the bones of the dead one over there." I looked at the naked corpse on the warehouse floor, the skin still moist, the grin still present, even soulless. "Can you use that?" "With the right rituals, yes. But we'll need someone who knows how to handle these things. I know a woman. She's in Santa Fe. She doesn't ask many questions." It took us about 2 hours to clean the essentials, wrap Rex in a blanket, put the body in the trunk, and leave the warehouse behind. The city was still asleep, people still dreaming. No one there knew the kind of war knocking at their doors. We headed north on I-25. Nathan drove. Rex lay in the back seat, his head resting on my lap. His eyes remained open, always alert. "You're going to be okay, boy. I promise." The words came out more for me than for him. In Santa Fe, Nathan took us to a seemingly normal house on the outskirts of the old center. The yard was dry, the windows covered with thick cloths. The door opened before we could knock. A woman was waiting for us. Short, deep eyes, tattoos on her neck, Her name was Miriam. She let us in without asking anything. Rex was laid out on a blanket on the living room floor. Miriam approached, examined the wound with hollow eyes, and simply said, "This was left to kill slowly. They wanted him to watch you die first." The woman began to work with herbs, stones, and a mixture of dark liquid that smelled like hot metal. Nathan brought in the werewolf's body wrapped in canvas. Miriam didn't hesitate. She just lit candles, traced symbols on the floor, and began murmuring words I didn't understand. Meanwhile, I went out to the yard, and that's when I saw the tracks. Large footprints, damp, fresh, in the middle of the dry dust. They had followed us there too. The tracks left no doubt. 3 pairs walking slowly to the back of the house and stopping there. No return trail, no sign of running. The kind of marks you make when you're watching. For a while. I went back inside, locking the door behind me. They were here. Nathan stopped cleaning the bone bullets and looked at me gravely. They're giving us space, like they want us to prepare. Maybe they want us to think we have a chance. Or they want Rex to recover, so they can kill him while you watch. Miriam didn't even look up. She kept stitching the skin of the dead creature's fingers, whispering words that seemed to choke the air. She finished preparing a dark ointment and applied it to Rex's wound. The smell was intense, a mix of blood, wet earth, and rust. He'll survive, but not for long. If they want to kill him, they'll come back tonight. Tonight? Yes. It's almost a new moon. That's when they like to test who deserves to keep breathing. Nathan finished forging the projectiles. 10 in total. Enough for 1 more night, maybe 2. If no mistakes were made. We divided the weapons, shotguns, ritualistic bladed knives, the spear with the bone tip, now black as coal after the last fight, and a small rod of cold iron that Miriam gave us with a warning. Don't use it unless you want to wound your own soul. We spent the rest of the afternoon fortifying the house's interior. Miriam gave us a white powder we spread on windows and doors. They hesitate with this, but it doesn't stop them. The sky began to darken, and the night's silence thickened like cement. City sounds disappeared, as if the world knew that block was beyond salvation's reach. Rex stood up on his own around 10 p.m. He limped, but he was on his feet. His eyes still burned with silent fury. When he walked to the door and sat in front of it, we knew it was time. Nathan positioned himself with the shotgun. I held the spear firmly in my hands. Miriam turned off all the lights. The house was now a blind spot in total darkness. At 2:18 a.m., we heard the first sound. It wasn't a bang, it was a voice, coming from outside the living room window. A hoarse, deep voice, impossible to identify its gender. It spoke English, but dragged, like someone who hadn't been born with a tongue. "Give up the dog, and you will die with dignity." Nathan cocked the gun. Rex approached the door, body upright, paws firm. As if he expected the fight, as if he expected me to open it. The voice came again. "Last warning." I walked to the door. Sweat rolled down my neck. My hand gripped the wood so tightly I felt my nails pressing into my skin. Outside, footsteps approached. 3, 4 pairs, surrounding. Then, right outside, we heard another sound, metal striking wood. Miriam whispered, "They're carving symbols into the house. They're marking it. They'll attack before sunrise." And at that moment, before I could respond, the roof burst open, and someone dropped out of the darkness directly into the center of the room. The attack had begun. The monster that crashed through the roof didn't even have time to hit the floor. Rex intercepted it mid-air. A dull impact, 2 bodies crashing among debris. The stench of rotting flesh filled the room instantly. I raised the spear, aimed. But Rex was already sinking his teeth into the creature's arm with enough force to tear flesh. Nathan fired. The special bullet struck the beast's thigh, and it screamed, not like an animal, but like someone who had lost control of their pain. Miriam grabbed a handful of white powder and threw it onto the convulsing shape. The creature twisted, shrieked, and vanished through the window, dragging a trail of thick, dark blood. We didn't wait for more. Miriam handed us 3 vials, one with a murky liquid that burned the skin just by touching it, another with powder that blinded spiritual eyes, and a third that only brought back what wanted to stay. I didn't ask what that meant. There was no time. Before we left, Rex looked at Miriam. She knelt in front of him and touched the dog's forehead, whispered something in a language older than any prayer, then stood. "Go now. They're expecting you. But they're not expecting you ready." We headed south again toward Tierras. The woods there were known for narrow trails and stories of sightings in the mountains, a place no one patrolled after sunset. Nathan tracked signs with military precision and renewed hatred. He found footprints, marks on trees, symbols carved with claws into old trunks, and blood. Lots of blood. "Someone's already died here tonight," he said, "or is dying right now." We entered in total silence, the forest closing around us like walls of shadow and branches. Rex took the lead, sniffing. His movements were sharper than ever. Each step was calculated. The first trap exploded. Not on us, on someone. We found the body seconds later. One of the werewolves, disfigured, jaw torn off, eyes gouged out. But it wasn't us. Nathan crouched. This is internal retaliation. They're killing the weak. They were preparing, cleansing their own pack. Farther ahead, we came across another scene. An abandoned campsite. 2 torn-up tents, blood all around. A child's backpack on the ground, a small shoe, still with a foot inside. I wanted to scream, but there wasn't time. Nathan knelt, picked up a branch, and drew a circle in the dirt. Inside it, he placed the vial of white powder Miriam had given us. He lit a black candle and said, "If they're hunting, we'll hunt back." Nathan's ritual worked like a beacon. Minutes after the candle extinguished itself, we heard the first movement, cracking branches that weren't wind, footsteps too large for any forest animal. And then came the eyes. Several. Among the trees. Low, high, some distant, others just meters away. Surrounded again. But now, prepared. Nathan scattered the white powder around the circle. I stood beside Rex, spear in hand. The dog sniffed the air like he already knew which one would attack first. It was the biggest. It emerged from the woods, charging with fury. Its fur was black and thick, eyes completely white, without pupils. The claws scraped the ground hard, carving trenches into the dirt. We fired together. The first bullet hit its leg, the second, its shoulder. The creature staggered but didn't fall. Rex leapt, biting into the exposed flank and toppling the beast. A fight broke out on the ground, claws, teeth, blood gushing in streams. The earth turned red. A second wolf came from the side and tackled Nathan, knocking him down. I charged with the spear, driving it into the creature's skull base. It howled, gasped, tried to slash at me, but didn't make it. It died. Nathan stood up, blood on his face, his arm cut to the bone. He tied his shirt around the wound while muttering, "There's still more." The third came from above. It jumped from a tree like a living shadow. Agile, slender, eyes spinning in different directions. It lunged at me, slamming me to the ground, claws digging into my vest. Rex attacked from behind, biting the creature's spine with such force I heard bones break. The scream it gave was almost human. Almost. I got up and stabbed it in the chest. 3 thrusts. 4. The body convulsed. The mouth tried to speak, but there was no more air in the lungs. We went silent, but the forest didn't. More bodies moved among the trees, watching us, but they didn't attack. They stayed in the shadows, as if waiting for something or someone. Then, from within the woods, the last one emerged, taller, thicker, eyes glowing a vivid red, claws larger than any we'd seen before. A necklace hung around its neck, made of human bones. "The Alpha," said Nathan. Rex didn't lunge. He stood still, staring at the creature with a different fury. Not rage, recognition. The wolf raised a hand, and the others withdrew. He stepped forward, then another step, and then, with a deep, raspy voice, he spoke. In words barely human. "You killed my blood. Now, you'll see what it's like to lose yours." The Alpha didn't attack immediately. He walked slowly through the forest, past the mangled bodies of the other werewolves like he was strolling through sacred ground. His eyes were fixed on me, on Rex. No rush, no blind rage, just certainty. Nathan stood with effort, shotgun in hand, his arm hanging like a broken branch. This one's different. Doesn't fight on instinct, he thinks. I knew. It was obvious. Every move the Alpha made was studied, calculated. He watched us like he was judging, and the sentence had already been passed. Rex began circling, positioning himself between us and the monster. The dog's fur bristled, eyes locked. He was trembling, not with fear, with tension. "You killed one of ours," the Alpha said. His voice was low, guttural, like each syllable scraped the inside of a nightmare. "He came after us. Chose to die," I replied. "He chose to protect." He stopped a few meters away. "You burned our blood, broke the pact. Now, yours will spill until the earth refuses to take it." The Alpha took off the bone necklace and threw it at my feet. Some of the pieces were far too small, childlike. "From what I've seen, you don't have pacts. You just kill," I said. He smiled. A smile too wide, too many teeth. "Wrong. We balance. But when one of us is killed, we answer." Without warning, he charged at us. The speed was absurd. A black blur of muscle and claws. Rex leapt first. The impact was so strong that they tumbled through the dirt, knocking over trees and kicking up dust. We fired, Nathan and I. The shotgun made the Alpha spin in the air, but he landed on his feet. Charged again. A clawed strike knocked Nathan down, tearing a gash across his chest. Blood gushed like a jet. I rushed in with the spear. I drove it into his shoulder. He screamed. A dry sound, pure hatred. He hit me with the back of his claw, flinging me 3 meters away. I crashed, shoulder popping, weapon out of reach. Rex came back, leapt for the Alpha's throat, bit, tore, but was grabbed and hurled into a tree. The thud shook the trunk. Rex fell, didn't move. Rex wasn't moving. The dog's body was crumpled among roots and leaves, his ribcage rising and falling in uneven intervals. For the first time, I doubted he'd get up again. For the first time, fear was louder than rage. The Alpha approached me, the spear still lodged in his shoulder, but he didn't seem to feel pain. He was bleeding, but smiling. "This is what you call resistance?" he said. "I've buried civilizations more worthy than you." Nathan coughed blood. "Dylan, behind you." I turned just in time to see another of the wolves, one of the smaller ones, but fast. Eyes glowing pale blue, unlike the others. It came at me from behind. I didn't think, just ran toward Rex's body. I grabbed Harold's knife from the sheath strapped to the dog. It was all I had left. I turned and faced the second wolf. It leapt, I dove underneath and drove the blade into its abdomen, hard enough that we tumbled together across the dirt. It screamed, fell on top of me, trying to claw at my face, but I kept pushing the blade until I felt bone give way. The creature's body went limp, twitched, then stopped moving. The alpha didn't laugh. He just watched. "You've killed more than you should have." His voice now wasn't threatening. It was judging, disappointed. He turned his eyes to Nathan. "He won't last." Ran toward him. Nathan lifted the weapon with his good hand, fired. The shot hit the monster's face, blowing off part of his jaw. But it wasn't enough. The alpha drove his claws into Nathan's chest and lifted him off the ground. "You're just another one who thought he understood nature and lived too long." Nathan spat blood and looked at me. "End him. Now." Then the alpha ripped Nathan's body in half, like soaked paper. Nathan's guts spilled onto the soil of Tijeras. His body lay in two separate, unrecognizable pieces. I screamed, but not in fear, in rage. The alpha turned to me, his face deformed by the shot, black blood dripping like oil. "You are the last." That's when I heard the most awaited sound of my life. Rex's growl. The dog was getting up, wounded, bleeding, but alive, and with his eyes lit like never before. He ran. And I ran with him. The alpha lunged, but not fast enough. Harold's spear was still lodged in his shoulder. I tore it out with both hands. And with Rex biting the monster's knee, I drove the spear with all my strength into the middle of that thing's chest. The blade sank deep. The alpha tried to grab me, but Rex leapt at his throat. And then came the scream. The forest shook. The alpha dropped to his knees, then to his side. The body convulsed. The blood bubbled black, but his eyes still stared at me, even dying, even sinking into the ground. "This doesn't end here," he said, and died. The alpha's body remained on the ground for nearly an hour. The blood didn't dry. It dripped in slow, black drops, steaming when they touched the soil, as if the very earth refused to accept that flesh. Rex didn't leave his side. He sat nearby, chest heaving, body trembling, but eyes fixed, as if waiting for it to move again. I sat beside what was left of Nathan. His face was still intact, eyes closed. You could still see the man who had faced hell by my side, who never asked anything of me, who died the way he fought, staring death in the eyes. I didn't cry. There was no room. We buried Nathan with our hands, digging between branches and hard earth, using broken stakes and rocks. I placed the tip of one of the spears over the grave, the same one he wielded in the final battle. We said no prayers, only silence. Then we returned to the alpha's body. We couldn't leave him there. Rex looked at me as if saying, "Burn it, now." I used Miriam's vial, the murky liquid. I poured it over the body, and with an old match, set it on fire. The flames started green, then red. The stench was unbearable, like rotting meat mixed with sulfur and burning metal. The body writhed even in death, as if the thing inside tried to escape. But in the end, it turned to ashes. When the fire died down, only one medallion remained. The same symbol as the first. 3 overlapping claws, but now, with a 4th mark, still uncarved. I picked up the medallion with a cloth and slipped it into my pocket. Rex growled low. He felt it. It wasn't the end. We came down from Tijeras at dawn. The city was still asleep. We left the Tijeras forest like we were leaving a battlefield forgotten by God. The earth was scarred. The woods reeked of ancient blood. And the few bodies we left buried seemed to beg for a rest that would never come. We reached the city when the sun was still crawling behind the mountains. No one on the street, no sirens, no sign that just hours earlier, hell had walked among trees and shadows. The world went on, indifferent. Rex slept in the back seat the entire ride. His body was covered in fresh scars. The bandages couldn't contain what was inside. But he was still breathing. He was still with me. I drove aimlessly until I stopped at a forgotten gas station on Route 66. I got out, washed my face in a filthy sink, stared at my reflection in a cracked mirror. I was no longer the man who left Flagstaff. Now, there was no more running. I turned on the car radio. No news, no mention of the deaths, the creatures, the explosions in the woods. Just traffic, weather, and a host laughing about some street festival. The real world remained immune to the truth. I received a message on my phone. Unknown number. You cut off the head of the pack, but the forest has many branches, and not all are visible. I deleted the message, but kept the words. Rex woke up, lifted his head with difficulty and looked at me. It was a look that said everything. The war wasn't over. It had just changed locations. I grabbed the medallion, now wrapped in a dark cloth, and looked again at the carved symbol. The fourth claw hadn't been completed, but it would be. As long as there is breath, as long as there is night, as long as there are creatures prowling the boundaries between man and beast, we will be waiting. The Alpha turned to me, but before he could speak again, I ran toward Rex. I dropped to my knees beside his body. He was still breathing, barely. His ribs heaved like they were about to give in. His eye, the one that still opened, found mine. Stay with me, boy. Please. My voice cracked. I didn't care anymore who was watching. I didn't care if I lived or died. What mattered was that Rex didn't die alone, that he knew he hadn't failed, that we had done what we came to do. The Alpha took a step forward. I stood up. I had nothing in my hands. The spear was gone. The bullets had run out. Just me, my fists, my will. But behind me, Rex stood again, bleeding, broken, but not beaten. He bared his teeth. The Alpha hesitated. And in that hesitation, I understood something. They weren't invincible. They weren't gods. They bled. They feared. They had rules, and we had broken them. You'll die with him, the Alpha growled. Then let's die standing, I replied. He roared. Rex charged. I followed. There was no strategy anymore, no backup, no reinforcements, only instinct, fury, pain. We collided one last time. I don't remember every detail of the final moments, just flashes. My hands around his throat. His claws scraping my back, Rex tearing into his side. Blood, black and red, spraying through the trees, bones cracking, a scream that didn't sound like mine. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. I was on the ground, covered in blood. The Alpha was gone, his body nowhere to be seen. Only a wide trail of destruction, broken trees, and claw marks that led to a cliff edge overlooking the valley. He had fled, wounded, defeated, but not dead. Rex lay beside me, his chest rising and falling slowly. He was alive. We didn't speak. We couldn't. We just lay there, breathing in the scent of pine, earth, and burning sunlight. And for the first time in weeks, nothing moved in the trees. We had won, or survived, which, in this war, was the same thing. Hours later, I limped down the mountain road with Rex by my side. We didn't go back to Albuquerque. We didn't go to a hospital. We didn't turn ourselves in or call for help. We vanished again. Changed names again. But now we were no longer just running. Now we were watching too, waiting. The forest is quiet today, but sometimes I still see the red eyes. watching from the edge of memory. And I wonder, how many more are out there? How many are waiting for a new moon? For a blood scent on the wind? For the call of the alpha? Rex doesn't sleep deeply anymore. Neither do I, because we know this isn't over. There are nights when I wake up drenched in sweat, with Rex already standing at the door. No sound, no scent, just that feeling, the kind that seeps into your skin, into the spaces between your bones, like something pressing in from outside, like something watching. Sometimes I dream of Flagstaff, of Harold's last words, of the flame consuming the werewolf's corpse, and of the medallion that refused to melt. Each claw on that symbol tells a story, each mark a blood debt. The fourth one still waits to be carved, and deep down I know it won't be the last. The cities sleep, the streets move on, people talk about monsters in fiction, about legends whispered by campfires. But I've seen them. I've fought them. I've buried friends because of them, and I've watched the forest bleed. Rex doesn't bark anymore, only growls when something's too close. The kind of close you don't measure in meters, but in intent. We keep moving from place to place, never staying long. Every time we set foot in a new town, I check the local obituaries. Stray dogs torn apart, children missing, bodies drained or mutilated in ways the newspapers can't explain. And every time I see a headline like that, I feel my hand tightening around the grip of the weapon in my bag. Because I know the signs. Because I've seen the ritual. Because I carry the scent of war in my clothes. They can smell it. They remember. There are packs hidden in every corner of this country. Some smaller, feral, acting on instinct. Others organized, ancient, strategic. Some are already among us, wearing human faces, hiding behind routines and jobs and families, waiting for the call, waiting for blood. And every time one of them dies, the others feel it. It's not just instinct, it's connection. Like a network pulsing through the dirt, through roots, through forgotten places. I've come to believe that what we call myth is just the memory of something that never really went away. We only stopped telling the truth out loud, but the truth has claws, it leaves marks, and it always comes back. Miriam still sends us messages, short ones, usually warnings, sometimes coordinates. The last one just said, "Movement in Montana, be ready." I don't know how she knows, but she's never been wrong. We'll be ready. Rex is older now, slower in the mornings. The scars on his body never fully healed. Neither did mine. But when night falls, when the moon disappears, when the air gets too quiet, we both feel it. Something still walks out there, and it's looking for us. And one day, it will find us again. But we won't be caught off guard. We are not survivors anymore. We are sentinels. And if the packs want war, they'll get it. There's a motel we return to sometimes. It's near the border between Arizona and New Mexico. Old place, wooden sign falling apart. A single working neon letter flickering like a weak pulse in the dark. The owner doesn't ask questions, maybe because he's seen enough, or maybe because he senses it too. We stay in room 6, always the same. Rex walks the perimeter every night, sniffing the windows, standing still for minutes at a time as if listening to something I can't hear. I trust him more than anyone. Some nights I write, notes, names, patterns, trying to understand what connects the deaths, the towns, the clans. Sometimes I draw, the faces I remember, Harold's eyes before the end, Casey's smile, frozen in that last breath, Nathan, with the blood running down his chin and that damn spear still in his hands. I draw them so I don't forget, So the war doesn't turn them into shadows, because that's what the creatures want. For us to forget, to move on, to accept. But I won't. I owe them too much. And Rex, he carries the rage in his bones. We know there are more. We found trails in the Dakotas, symbols near old mines in Colorado. One night someone followed us through the streets of a forgotten town in Nevada, but didn't make a move. Just watched. They're waiting. Maybe for a leader. Maybe for the next full cycle. Or maybe just for the rest of us to grow tired. But I'm not tired. Not yet. There's something inside me now. Something that wasn't there before Flagstaff. Before the blood. Before the fire. It's not power. It's clarity. I know what I am. I know what I have to do. So I leave this message for whoever finds it. If you've seen them too. If you've lost someone. If your dog growls at a shadow that shouldn't be there, don't ignore it. Don't call it coincidence. Don't turn away. Because they never stopped hunting. And we're the only line between them and the night. So sharpen your blades, clean your weapons, feed your dog, and when the time comes, stand your ground. We are the last ones awake, and they are already here. What happened in those woods wasn't just legend. It was a warning, and that hunter paid the price for crossing the line. The shadows aren't gone, and what's coming next will make everything before seem like a whisper. Like this video if you felt the fear crawling through the trees. Comment below. What would you have done in his place? And share it with someone who still believes the forest is just trees and silence. They need to know what's really out there. And if you dare, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and hit the bell. Not just to stay updated, but to stay alive when the night calls again.